touched a lot of the important things. The 4 R's you've heard me say: the right source, rate, time, and place. Very critical. I believe in generally. Again, it's not a one size fits all, but generally speaking, banding fertilizer, in my opinion, is the most economical way to go. It meets the 4 R's better than any other way of getting fertilizer out there. But again, don't even worry about putting fertilizer out there in great amounts until you fix the basics, okay? So it's very economical to do it that way. So I looked up the Tri-State Fertilizer Rex that was recently published. In short, what I walked away from is it's not very efficient. So MAP 1152.0, okay, takes 19 pounds actually applied of MAP to build a pound in your soil. 9 to 10 pounds of actual P2O5 to build your soil. The reason that number is double because its MAP is only 52% phosphate, right? So that's where that comes from. Potassium, a little bit more efficient, okay? Is there a time and place for it? Yeah. Are there some other alternative options to broadcast, such as manures, organic forms, which in my opinion, and based off a lot of studies as well, much more efficient, as you kind of get that compounding effect and that return on investment over time, and much more efficient use. And it's not all about the number sometimes, okay? I think that's super critical to understand. It's not all about the number. It's a lot of it goes to efficiency. So why do we consider banding it? Well, you can cut expense by about half, literally. Mitigate, prevent tie-up. It goes back to the pH. It goes back to all them ratios we just talked about. It goes back to the levels we just talked about. It all ties together, right? If you put something broadcast out there and you're trying to cover 2 million pounds of soil, which is what they pull on a soil sample at 0 to 6 inches deep, and you're trying to fix 2 million pounds of soil, it takes pretty big loader, pretty big pocketbook. It's a cost-price squeeze environment right now. I believe on the latest Purdue 2025-26 data that they published, I believe the average input cost for corn in Indiana was $691, obviously variable. Beans was right around the 300 mark. For the last 3 or 4 years, I believe, profit. Does anybody know what profit was? And we're just talking average. Per acre profit on a farm. Does anybody got a guess? No? Negative $100. Are we doing something right? Good Lord tells us first give to Him. But we are supposed, the first fruits of our labor come to the farmer, the one who sweats by his brow. Somebody's taking that away. Something ain't right, guys. And it's sad. Breaks my heart. Crazy to think about. A lot of sacrifices. People will never know what each and every one of you have sacrificed in your life and your families to feed God's people. We don't just feed the soil. We're here to feed souls as well, to build the kingdom. And nobody will ever understand. They truly won't. What many of you experience. So you don't get thanked enough. So thank you for what you do. Another thing to consider with that is you want to feed the crop, not the weeds. Okay? Forms of banding, what are we talking about? And furrow, 2x2, side dress, streaming, foliar. Those are all forms of banding. Basically what the point is you want to have a little bit of accuracy. You got to know what you're putting, how much, where it's going. You want it to be where it needs to be, okay? Bottom line, super efficient. One rule of thumb I like to stick by is when you're trying to amend soil or do soil amendments with liquids, stick to a streamer application. It goes back to that moisture in biology. If you take the same volume of water and you restrict it into 3 streams compared to small droplets throughout, much more higher chance of survival because it's right there in that moisture zone. It saturates in the soil. So some things to consider. Now, if you're trying to foliar feed, you want droplets. You want coverage and surface area. So you really want the right type of nozzle for the right job to be the most efficient. Will soil applied work with foliar type tips or flat band or whatever you want to call it? Yeah. I think you leave yourself open to higher risk that way, though. Endo 25, this is a mostly mycorrhizal, fungal type and biological seed treatment. There's lots of different plot results on that. It's a newer product for us, but it actually is built on building blocks of over 40 years of doing this. And what I'm seeing, I really like it. I like it way better than what we were using, and that was a great product. At the time, I couldn't find something I like better, but it's always good to evolve and improve and learn. And we got some, I'm very blessed to have great mentors that have been doing this almost as long as I've been alive, and good men to learn from and to see how they can consistently evolve and learn and improve is a huge testimony. So this is right across north central Ohio. I think this is one of John Daniels' guys. Is that right, Ken? If I remember correctly. Not a huge success there, but if you look at return on investment, you're talking right around $2-something an acre on corn. It's volume based. What's that return on investment on organic corn? How much did organic corn sell for last year? So that's $35 gross minus $2. Pretty darn good return on investment. Pretty darn good. That's not a knock it out of the park like we've seen. Very modest. And I've seen less than that too. And I've seen extremely higher. Right, here's one. North Carolina. This is done at a university, North Carolina State. He's done a lot of work with agri-energy as well as some other universities and very smart, good people. I consider that a home run. Is it going to be a home run every time? I can't tell you that. And I don't always measure success in yield, okay? If anybody promises you a yield, be very careful. I can't make no promises I can't keep. Starter and fertilizer, I think that's critical. And let's go back to the basics, nutrients and biology together. It's not just one product, and that's kind of what I really think is one of the coolest things about what we do. Not only the history and where we come from and the quality, but being able to tailor something to meet your specific needs and not overcharge for it, not be, you guys ever hear the 1034-0, right? 10% goes to the dealer, 34% to the manufacturer, and the farmer gets 0. That's the wrong approach. So being able to take like starter and what works for you and not have to break out the pocketbook and get into your profit margins. At the end of the day, it's not all about money, but we all got to feed our families. We got to survive. We got to make a living. But when it ends up costing the farmer to where they can't have a win, i.e. in the last 3 or 4 years, on average, a negative $100 an acre, that's wrong. It's wrong. But being able to mix that and integrate some of these core philosophies and foundations and principles that have been proven for decades, and being able to do that and not overcharge for it, pretty stinking amazing. Your mix can be different than yours, can be different than mine, and be different than his. And they don't actually charge extra to do it. It's still the base product cost. Pretty cool. where it shines, even if you have healthy soil, okay, phosphates. That chart right there kind of tells a big story. Okay, phosphates are, super critical. It's ATP, energy. Got to have that, and calcium, I think, are kind of the big two to have right off the beginning. But soil temperature. So let's say we go in early spring and your soil temperature is hovering around 50, and let's go plant, and then the soil temperature cools off. That phosphate is not available. I don't care if you have 1 million pounds in your vault in your bank that's closed. It's closed. You can't get to it. So for very, very inexpensive cost, you can add a little bit of starter. You can add the biology. You can add the carbons. You can add the zinc. You can add the manganese. You can add all these things. That goes back to the ratios of, hey, where am I trying to get to? This is a stinking mess. I just took a 1,500 puzzle picture and I just did this and I don't even know where to start. Yeah, well, just reel it back in, put it in furrow, a little bits here. Don't break the bank doing it. And if you don't need a lot, don't spend your money there. Spend it on what you need. Where have you not spent the money lately? That's probably where you need to focus on first. Most time is trace minerals, carbons, biologicals, things like that. But nutrients are critical too. These are some corn trials. Pretty stinking amazing. And this is done at a university. The most I've seen here is 38.8 bushel, right? About 1.5 miles from my house. 40-acre trial out of 100. So is that going to be the norm? No. But guess what? And don't take me, do I have any scientists or chemists? None in here? Don't take this the wrong way, okay? We can learn so much from what they do. But sometimes we overcomplicate it. Life is very complex. But one thing so if you look here, they isolate something, okay, to get the most valid result they can. Lots to learn from that. Tons to learn from that. But just think if you took that whole systems approach. You did the transformer. You did the seed treatment. You did the bioenergy and the right nutrients in furrow. You added your sulfur and your boron, your nitrogen in 2x2. You went in your side dress and you balanced and buffered that at a 20-to-1 ratio of carbon to get closer to where the optimum NUE is going to be. And you did all these things. And then you're scouting the field. And oh no, I must not have got my bricks high enough yet because I see a little bit of disease or insect pressure. So you go out there with the foliar. And you add maybe some neem if it's insects. Or, when you're in furrow, you add the Endo 25 plus the Bavaria bassiana, which we're getting ready to learn about. Just think if you take all these things and you package them together to where it still doesn't break the bank. Most of the programs that I'm able to work with guys in this area, and I ain't going to say it's free, but it's generally under $200 for the whole thing. And we're talking everything from molybdenum to induce to Bavaria bassiana to Endo 25 to several gallons of bioenergy to the Agri-K that has boron, sulfur, manganese, zinc. That's talking your starter, your side dress humics, your fulvix, your privam. All these things as a package, pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. Now, that's kind of taking the shotgun approach, so sometimes you dial that back down. But on year one, I'm telling you, very seldom do you need a sniper rifle. But you need to know you still got to have a target. You don't just spray down range, right? So here's an organic starter plot. I believe this is John Daniel Schlebach. And he's not that far from here. I think it's 3.5 hour trip for me, probably 1.5 hours. He's over in Wooster, Ohio area. Amish gentleman. I'd say he has a crown of splendor, a very wise man. Very good at what he does, works with several hundred customers and has been for 3 decades or more, Ken. And so I try to make it a point every year he does a road tour of farms. He visits everywhere from A gentleman who farms organic, that's English, and does a couple thousand or more acres, to the 150 acre or 20 acre Amish farmer that only has a horse. And they do a phenomenal job. Pretty interesting. If you ever have a chance, I'd highly encourage you to at least come for a little bit. Not to mention their food is great. It's always a great lunch. Gotta love Amish food. Side dressing, balanced and buffered mix, okay? Good place to add your sulfur. Good place to add your boron. Some of your hotter things that you can't put in furrow. I also like to add boron and sulfur in 2x2. Rule of thumb, if you're putting out nitrogen, 28, 32, whatever, always go out with it balanced and buffered, but Ken's going to talk about that more. Why is that important? The 4 R's. Just take 1 second and really look at this illustration. It tells a huge, huge, huge story. How do you know to feed the crop if you don't know what it needs? Or when it needs it? Or how it needs it? This right here, late season, when most people say, my crop's finished. It is what it is. I didn't get the rain. I didn't get this. I got that. It's telling you 99% of the time when you're saying that, it's still not done. In fact, it's probably at one of its highest uptake points in that life, in that point of its life. Like side dress and nitrogen, it's super important. Look how much of that goes to grain. Late season, we're talking, what's that, R5 and beyond? Crazy. And Ken will talk more about it, but there's a couple critical times, V5 in corn. Couple times where every bad day that crop has is a bad day you ain't going to get back. It takes that 620 bushel potential, and a bad day knocks it down. Another bad day knocks it down. And there's a certain time of life when it has a bad day that it doesn't just drop a little bit, it drops it a lot, and you're not getting it back. So I know some things I've said today maybe challenge the normal way of thinking or perception, so I don't mean to step on toes. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not saying you're doing it wrong or anybody's doing it wrong, and I'm not even saying I'm doing it right. But what I am saying is time tells, and understanding, learning from those who have experienced it, and having your boots on the ground and your shovel in the dirt, and learning that way really helps you be more confident. Okay? So when do you foliar feed? Can I ask a question? How many use fungicides, whether you need it or not? Insurance policy. Is anybody in here? Okay. And I'm not saying you're wrong, right, and different. What I'm saying is, you go back to that negative $100 an acre average. There's a time and place for everything, right? There is. I'm not saying it's bad, and a lot of guys I work with use it. Yeah. One individual comes to mind. He will not give it up or even cut his chemical 10%. But he says, how do I get this budget down to be more profitable next year? But they won't budge because I'm scared to do it. We're scared. We're scared. They've made us scared. They have. Fear. Fear rules people. They figured it out. And they're reaching right in your pocketbook and taking it out because you're scared. If I don't put it on, I might have a complete failure. Well, how about maybe trying to start with a good start and make it healthy and help it be resistant through things like Bavaria bassiana and things like that really make the overall plant health defend itself. So when you go out there and foliar feed anyhow, that's when you add those things like Agri-K Plus has been a great product. That was a foliar of bioenergy and Induce. And Induce we've been working with for what, just 2 years now? I'm pretty excited about that too. And when you couple them together, do you see them synergisms? You see that loaded clip? That's just 2 bullets in the clip. See what that can do? Or you separate in one? You know, there's a good reason the Lord says, you know, when 2 or more come together in my name, there I will be also. There's strength in unity. There is strength in unity. Agri-K Plus, that's a 3,515 product, K-acetate. Again, it's not all about the number. Don't get lost in the numbers, the 3, the 5, the 15, or how many pounds of this am I buying? So, quick illustration here. It's not always how much, but how good is it? Is anybody familiar with K-acetate? They ever use it much? Okay. Right here is the most common forms of potassium, and this is the absorption rate. And this is studied all the way back in 1986. Pretty interesting. Soybeans? Foliars on soybeans, in my opinion, one of the biggest bang for your buck. Look at that chart when you have time. R1, R4 to R6. They can hit home runs. That's a sample program. Obviously, it changes. You kind of look at that. It looks like a lot of stuff, but what we try to do is blend all that together so it comes as one product wherever possible, wherever it's stable. We can add whatever you need, whatever your soil sample, plant tissue analysis, whatever that is. Add, take away, change, feed what you need when you need it. Foliar gets it right into the plant. A little bit goes a long, long way. And Nano Pro, we haven't spoken much about that, but Mike's getting ready to explain what that is. I think all these are excellent, excellent tools with a lot of synergisms taking place. This right here, I've been working with him since I started Agri-Energy Indiana. Like, you know, obviously Dad started in '88, but I started in 2021 was my first, actually it was in the fall, I believe, and started working with him. Dave and Ken and a couple others were able to visit that farm. Dave, do you want to tell us kind of what you saw when we did? So every year I try to do a little, stop and visit 3 or 4 customers. You know whether it's the good, the bad, the ugly. We saw some really good stuff, and we saw one ugly thing that day, which goes back to the 4 R's and timing and placement. But do you remember walking? Do you remember that? Does that slide ring a bell to you?
Testing. So I mean, you was out on our field, and I mean, you couldn't. That field didn't give. We tried to pull a soil sample, and I mean, I thought we were both going to kill ourselves trying to pull a soil sample. I mean, the difference just walking out on that field, and then you pull those soybean plants up, and the roots underneath there. I mean, they were clear up to here. I mean, it was the most impressive field I've seen, and I don't know when. So it was awesome.
Yeah, and hats off to him. That takes good management. I will say that was his program. Double check that. Yep, that seems almost. Yep, that was his program. He did 1,000 pounds of gypsum the winter before. And he did apply herbicide and fungicides on his foliar passes. And while he goes out there anyhow, we added to the tank. Didn't hit the timing right on point. That's all right, you know. Sometimes it's horseshoes and hand grenades. It's not all about sniper rifles, you know. But 98 bushel per acre, that's and he hadn't used dry fertilizer in 5 years. since the year we started working together, he's not put dry fertilizer on. He's actually seen his yields go up consistently year over year over year over year. We have trying to break that 100 bushel mark, and I think integrating a couple things that we took out of the program this year just due to cost and this and that, and tried to be profitable. We did cut some of the recommendations, which is fine. But I think if we integrate some of that, I think we're going to reach his goal, because before Grandpa passes, he said he wants to see 100 bushel beans. So by golly, we're going to make that happen, Lord willing, if the good Lord blesses it. So sample stream program, another option. Pre-R1, in my opinion, it depends. V-stage, you don't want too much vegetative. I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole. Reel me back in, because time is running out. We got a lot to cover yet. Another option. That was program response, ROI, and that was from 3 years ago. And now actually he's kind of taken a hybrid approach, and we will try to gather some data. He's going to cut some of that budget on R1 and add to a later season foliar. Alfalfa program. This is a guy Ken works with. No fertilizer in the last 5 years. He used MVP when we gathered this data, but it's now bioenergy. And on soybeans, they're not quite as hungry in some ways than others. So cut back about half rate generally on starter. This is just kind of a quick overview. You know, I work with over 30 companies. You know, and there's a wide range of options that are a better fit for you than what's here probably. Recipe for success, just in you know, the 3 pillars. Keep going back to that. You know, identify, test, know our limiting factors, attack them limiting factors, the 4 R's, right time, place, right rate, and biology and carbons, a balanced and buffered approach. And if you do that, and ultimately, I want to go back to the main foundation, being rooted in Christ, then good Lord promises that he will bless you. With that, I'm going to, and then I'll be done talking for the day. I know you guys are tired of listening to me, and I want to shut up, too. Appreciate you guys. So weed management, fact here is, you know, growing degree days and GDUs dictate how often weeds germinate and come. And we were promised all the way back in the very beginning, okay, that basically we're going to work by the sweat of our brow, and we're going to have weeds, okay, because of our sin. We're never going to get rid of it all the way, okay? Even if we have everything completely balanced, something's going to throw it out of balance, you know? Conditions, bare spots. Mother Nature doesn't like being bare. Compacted soils, low soil, low porosity, low oxygen, low water holding capacity, infiltration. You're preventing it from being able to breathe. You're preventing tilth and soil organic matter building, and you know, kind of goes back to that domino approach, right? So a lot of factors, and here a big one that I concentrate on that affects the air and water is the calcium-magnesium ratio. So that's kind of one of the first dollars, in my opinion, that have the highest rate of return. Kind of goes back to gypsum mixed with carbon and biology and residue management, kind of the 1, 2, 3 knockout punch. Gives you a really solid start. Weeds and nutrient associations, most of them. So there's a book, Jay McCaman. We've actually worked with him, how long, Ken? 30 years? Maybe more? Huh? Long time. Spent a good portion of his life studying weeds. Okay. Great guy. And just to summarize the book, weeds are telling a story, right? But they have a lot in common. Soluble calcium, probably the number one when you look at the minerals. That and low humus. Kinda, if you fix those 2 things, you're fixing a lot of your weed problem. And then you start digging into, well, why does this weed grow here? Why does that one grow there? If you see a lot of spiky type weeds, the first thing I would look at is what's your sodium level? Because those grow where high sodium is. Sometimes seen where a lot of manure is used. Thistles, low manganese. Probably start there. What's your manganese levels? And it's not just, remember, manganese, pH dependent, more so than almost every other nutrient, right? You got a 6.5 pH, and to extract it on the soil sample, they're getting a 2 pH. So just because it's there doesn't mean it's available. Cockleburrs, zinc. Does anybody see any weeds they see in their fields up there? Nobody has water hemp or pigweed or foxtail, or that's maybe the first thing to dissect after the calcium humus. Standing water, compaction. So I challenge your way of thinking. Are weeds bad? Are they really bad? Or are they a symptom of a problem? I'm not going to disagree. They're bad. They can take your yield. They can rob your yield. Yeah, that's why we go out there and spray them with chemicals. And that's what we did too. I'm not pointing fingers. We did it too. We used chemical, didn't we, Dad? I got it. We got limited resources, limited time. You know, there's an ideal and then there's reality, and sometimes where that is for each individual looks different. So I'm not saying there's only one right way or whatever, but what I am saying is never be afraid to keep your mind and your eyes and your heart open. Okay? God created the weeds too, didn't he? Right? So never be afraid to maybe just change your at least have the option to look at a different perception and be open-minded. Mitigating weed growth, basically stick to the basics. That's going to fix a lot of your problems, really all the way around. Air and water. You do that, you add biology, you get things in balance, you build your tilth, and the cycle repeats itself. So it's either a vicious cycle that's eating you up, or it's a synergistic cycle that's building your retirement account. It goes one way or the other. Water quality does matter. pH. So this is a study, and there's actually several studies on this. Whoever sprays herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, I want you to take a look at something. Generally, our water in area is what, a 7, mid-7, something like that, pH. Take a look at your herbicide, fungicide, insecticide at a pH 9. Heck, let's go 7. But look at the half-life of that. Does anybody know what half-life actually means? So basically, after 10 minutes, your effectiveness is cut in 50%. And then another 10 minutes, it's cut another 50%. And then another 10 minutes, it's cut another 50%. Crazy. How many of you can fill up your spray tank, get your herbicide in there, and, whether you got it on a nurse tank and then go to your sprayer and go put it on and you're done in 10 minutes? You're better than me. So, some things to consider. With that being said, Mike, he's going to teach us about nanotechnology today. Pretty cool stuff, and I think there's a very valid use, and excited to hear from him today. Thank you guys for your time.